Hey, I'm here again. Woo! They decided to let me come back, which is horrible on their end. But hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 14 of the Off a Turd One podcast. Your typical suspect this time. Scott wanted a week off. Joe wanted a week off. So I just had to, bring back AJ because it's always a fun time having racing conversations with AJ. And we've also got Mike Campeggio this week.
AJ, Gary, how you guys doing? Glad to be a guest on the podcast. AJ, glad to be back with you for the second day in a couple days in a row here.
Yeah, just very much trying not to get black flagged.
Oh, good one.
That was good. That's good.
I got the whole thing.
Well, gentlemen, I wanted to start off on a sad note, and we're going to go ahead and do that. Earlier this week, we heard Parnelli Jones passed away. And really, he was probably the John Andretti of the 60s and 70s, where he was really a guy. And you guys have probably heard of his son, PJ Jones, who raced in NASCAR, a little bit of IndyCar, a little bit of everything. Didn't have the success his dad had, but I think that was mostly because PJ was never really in good equipment whenever he did run NASCAR, IndyCar. But just some career stats of his. He won the USAC Midwest Sprint Car Championship in 1960, and then went back to back on the national circuit in 61 and 62. So over that 3-year span, or that 3-season span, he won 3 titles in a row. It's pretty impressive. Won the USAC Stock Car Championship in 1964. Basically, before there was like ASA was big, or the Cars Tour, or ARCA. That was basically the NASCAR of the Midwest at that point in time. AJ Foyt's raced in it. I'm pretty sure Darrell Waltrip has. Dale
what
Earnhardt.
hasn't AJ Foyt raced in?
Oh, that's very true. That is very true.
If it's got 4, well,
if it's got 4 wheels and a steering wheel, he's gonna be driving.
I was say. Then my brain was like, he's crazy enough. Did he ever try motorcycles?
I don't know if he ever did or not. That's a good question. Some of his major victories: he won the Indy 500 in 1963. He won the Baja 1000 in 71 and 72.
Nice.
And that's a hard race to win. I know Roger Mears won it a couple times. Robbie Gordon. I know Jimmy Johnson has participated in it. I don't know if he's actually won it. And I think Brendan Gaughan too.
Yeah.
So a couple guys before they got into NASCAR, that's what they did out west, was run the desert Baja races back in the day. Kart, or Champ Car, he ran 59 races between 1960 and 1967, 6 wins, including that Indy 500, 17 podiums, 12 poles. And then in his NASCAR days, he ran 34 races, mostly as a road course ringer. Between 1956 and 1970, he won 4 times with 11 top 10s out of 34 races. That's pretty darn good. And he had 3 poles. So rest in peace, Parnelli Jones. Definitely one of the greater racers of, I guess you could say, of our grandparents' generation, maybe even great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really fast driver. One of the best. On to some lighter notes. The crapshoot that was the Detroit Grand Prix in the streets of Detroit, that happened this past weekend. Scott Dixon won that race, but man, it did not come without controversy. That was a lot of cautions, a lot of drivers getting cut, literally. Unico Hollinger Racing lost their alliance there with Arrow McLaren. What's y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, for me personally, watching that race this past weekend, I mean, that race had it all. I mean, the drama, the action, especially, I think what was the turns 3 and 4, the hairpin? Was it that turn?
It was turn 3, I think. Yeah, turn 3, and I think there was another hairpin, turn 6 or something. Yeah,
turn 3 was just like an absolute, you know what? I mean, these guys diving it in deep on the brakes and then just slamming into the person in front of them. That caused a lot of chaos during the race. And what I was surprised about too is I didn't think the race was going to be a much of a fuel mileage race late in the race with Dixon. I mean, Dixon and those guys up front were saving fuel, and it's like the Rassy yellows that they had, like especially from I think it was a lap 20 through 50. It's like that 30 lap
Well,
stretch.
that and where they weren't going green and they were going green on the wets and the dries and all that. That was a little touch and go as well.
So yeah, if you would have told me that the end of that race was going to be a fuel mileage race, I would have said you're crazy.
Yeah, that was an interesting little stretch there. With all that happened, Porsche and Canapino got into it. I guess there were death threats from Canapino's fans to Porsche after the race, and Canapino was liking those tweets. But from what I heard in the garage area, it was more than just liking those tweets that cost Canapino his ride. He's no longer at Juncos Hollinger Racing, at least for this week. I heard a rumor that it could be full time for this guy, but not entirely sure. I have to verify my sources on that. But Nolan Siegel is going to be racing that 70. Is it the 77 or 78?
I think it's
either way.
78.
Yeah, he'll be racing that car for Road America this weekend. So got that going on. David Malukas, the once driver, not really driver because never ran a race for McLaren. He's going to be driving the 66 for Meyer Shank Racing full time for the rest of the season, starting at Laguna Seca. That's going to be after this week at Road America. They go to Laguna Seca next, and so that's where he'll be racing. Or what I like to call Meyer Shank Racing, I like to call him the McLaren Reject Team. Because, Felix Rosenquist and David Malukas now there. Where did AJ go?
I don't know.
He just disappeared. I hope we're recording.
He disappeared into the pop dolls behind him, like poof,
He's gone. Anyways, okay. Let's see. TV contract. Let's talk about it. We're gonna talk about that a little bit. So, from what I have been able to gather over the last few weeks, last couple days, it's really not Roger that's running the IndyCar series. He's running the racetrack and his race team, but Jay Penske is the one running the IndyCar series. He has a contract on his desk from IndyCar, or from NBC rather, to do all 17 races on NBC. All of them. NBC, free network television, all of them there, and he hasn't agreed to the contract. Just left it on his desk, collecting dust. Right now, he's in cahoots with Fox. And as we know, Fox Sports, they're ending their coverage of NASCAR in 2025 after the All-Star race. That's going to be their last race. So they will be covering from the Clash, if we have one, all the way up to the All-Star race, I'm assuming at North Wilkesboro. But they want to cover the Indy 500. It's been rumored that Adam Alexander is going to be their guy for the IndyCar stuff. I've heard my biggest proponent is having Mike Joy do the Indy 500 at some point before he retires, because apparently he is coming back to Fox next year, which is good to see. Definitely not in the prime of his career anymore, but always got to respect that historian of the sport because he does a great job kind of bridging the gap between the old school and some of the newer stuff for NASCAR. But let's talk about this TV contract. I think they'd be pretty dumb to pass up that NBC offer that they got, where all 17 races are on network television.
That is my thinking as well for that contract situation. I mean, like you mentioned, 17 races, NBC, big channel, big viewers, all the races on that one channel. But you want to do races on Fox or FS1 or FS2, which, I mean, FS1 and FS2, not many people in their households get that. So for me, I would say stick with NBC. You're going to get a bigger viewing audience, because I think you and Joe and everybody can argue that the Indianapolis 500 is probably the biggest race on viewer-wise for the IndyCar season. And then it kind of, before that race and after that race, it tails off like a good amount. So it's like, use NBC, use the free channel that can go into 1 million of households, and you can grow a bigger viewing audience and get more fans invested in the sport. That's my thinking on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, so in Indianapolis, I don't think you knew this, but they lifted the blackout on TV in the local Indianapolis area. If you lived within an hour from the track, you were blacked out. Couldn't watch the race. Couldn't watch the Indy 500 live. You had to watch it on tape delay. Which that tape delay took place around the same time as when the Coke 600 started. They would end the race, and then like 7 or 8 o'clock that night, they'd have it on TV. But you could listen to it on the radio live. But this year, because of the rain delay and it not starting until 4 o'clock, Roger Penske and everybody at IMS was like, hey, let's just go ahead and lift the blackout. And I thought that was a good move, because if you look at it, I think they had like 5 or 6 million viewers for the Indy 500. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but it was higher than it was last year. Well, yeah. We can cuss on this podcast, by the way, and I'm about to say it. No shit, Sherlock. Of course the viewers went up. You actually allowed people in Indianapolis to watch the damn race on television that couldn't go to the racetrack, or people that went to the racetrack early in the day and said, fuck it, let's go home.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and the fact that like Doug Bowles was telling people like, hey, don't come to the Speedway right now. It's kind of a shit show with the weather and everything. Just stay home. Because I think there was a little bit to a point where they were probably thinking they weren't going to get the race in at all. Because they were saying at one point with the weather the way that it was, that it was going to rain until the start of the race at 4. And even if it takes them an hour, say an hour and a half, 2 hours to drive the track, like it did, they would probably get to halfway and then call it. And you don't want to do that. Not for the Indy 500. You want to make sure you can get all 500 miles in, which we ended up doing. And that was nice. But yeah, IndyCar, just sign the NBC deal. They clearly are interested in doing your sport. And if they're going to put it all on network television, free channels, you got to do it. You got to do it. Be stupid not to.
Yeah. And I think you and I and everybody in our friend group here can understand that with Fox Sports' coverage of NASCAR, how bad that's gotten over the last few years and how it continuously gets worse and worse. It's like, do you really want IndyCar to step into that situation where Fox is probably going to not put, I don't know, when you say too many resources into it, and then they're going to do kind of what they do with NASCAR, and it's just the coverage is not going to be as great as what NBC does, because what NBC does for IndyCar is absolutely fantastic, from the production to the announcing to everything.
Well, and up until when the NASCAR season starts, for the IndyCar coverage, they use all their NASCAR pit reporters. So they have, Dave Burns, they get Dylan Welch down there, they get Marty Snyder down there, and then they sprinkle in Kevin Lee. But I mean, they bring their A team for that IndyCar stuff, especially the Indy 500. You got to.
I did get the numbers. Indianapolis 500 was 5.344 million viewers. It was up 8% from the previous year.
And what was it the previous year? What was the numbers?
4.93 million.
Maybe they should lift the blackout in Indianapolis. I'm just saying.
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
Ever since you have been BICTHing about it, I did research into it, and that is some shady shit.
The last time that they lifted the blackout was for the 100th Indy 500, because it was, quote, sold out. I will say it was really nice race day where we didn't have people next to us, and Rob didn't have anybody in front of him, so he had a little extra foot room and we could kind of spread out a little bit. That was nice. I didn't feel like I was on top of sitting in Mike's lap while watching the race. That was nice.
Yeah, right.
So sorry, I had a family matter to attend to. So I apologize, everybody.
Well, go ahead. Tell us about what you think of Detroit. Did you watch the IndyCar race last week?
We all watched Detroit, and it was a wreck fest in that hairpin. That hairpin sucked for so many people. And then I like the aspect of it drizzled, and people were having issues on soft. So, and then some people went to the rain tire, and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. It's raining. It's not raining anymore."
Yeah. It was like one of those pop-up showers that Rob would tell me about, like Pocono, where there would be no rain in the forecast, and then all of a sudden, boop, there's rain. It's not even showing up on the forecast.
Or a crap ton
That's
of fog.
literally what that shower was in Detroit last week.
But I thought it was a very it was a wreck fest. Don't get me wrong. There were a lot of cautions.
There were.
Uh,
I think
um,
over half the race was ran under yellow.
but I think
Mhm.
the last 20-ish laps were green.
20, 30 laps, yeah, they were solid.
And I was waiting for I don't want to say Malukas, but P2 and P3 because they were catching Dixon because Dixon was in full save mode, and that one lap down car saved Dixon from
Oh, yeah.
winning that from
Oh,
winning
yeah.
that race.
Oh yeah. I think it was it Will Power running down?
No,
don't-
Ericsson.
Oh, Iracing.
Iracing.
Okay.
That's who it was. Okay, yeah. Yep.
I will
Yeah.
say one more thing before we move on to touch about Detroit. I saw a lot of guys from the IndyCar paddock. I think it was Graham Rahal, Ryan Hunter Way, I think Connor Daly too. They were tweeting out that they
Oh.
missed Belle Isle.
Yeah. There were a lot of people
I have
missing
some
Belle
very, very strong words about a certain IndyCar driver and his radio communications. Do you want to hear them?
Oh, yes.
Isle. Who? What?
Fuck Grosjean. I am out
Oh.
of the points. What's the point of me driving?
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
I was But no, you are a race car driver. This isn't F1 anymore. You're in the
Yeah.
car from the start of the race, or you wreck out, or you finish the race. There's no,
Yeah.
oh, I'm out of the championship anyway. Why am I even in the car?
Yeah. In 2015, IndyCar had a new rule for every race that you enter, you either retire the car or you finish. They don't do relief drivers anymore in IndyCar. That's why, with the whole Larson fiasco of who would his replacement driver be, because he would have to start the car and Larson wouldn't even run Indy. But Hendrick and NASCAR put all this time and all this money into, and we will talk about Larson here in a minute.
Oh, you guys haven't touched NASCAR yet?
No, we
No,
haven't.
we have not.
Oh, yeah.
But we will get to that. They spent $3 million, Hendrick did, alone on the race, getting that car ready. I know McLaren kind of fielded the car and helped them, but they used a Hendrick employee for the race strategist, probably Hendrick engineers, with a little bit of help from the Aero McLaren engineers for sure. But it was Aero McLaren that fielded the race car. It was their chassis. Now I'm hearing a rumor that potentially Hendrick is looking to come to IndyCar full time.
We've heard that rumor
And-
for a couple,
couple years, but those rumors are
Yeah.
starting to pick up again. Wouldn't shock me if they bought, say, Lukas Hollinger.
do they have to buy a team or can they just field a team?
So the charter thing isn't official, but I've heard it's basically done. It's just one of those things where could be done, could not be. We don't know.
That would make sense too. If Larson wants to run the double next year, that would make sense for Hendrick to buy a team in IndyCar and then field maybe 2 or 3 cars, and Larson gets one of them at the 500.
Yeah, so I think they would do two cars full time. Personally, I know who I would want in that car full time. One of them is Connor Daly.
I love his attitude.
Yeah, me too. Great driver, great guy. And then another guy who I would want to see in that car, probably somebody like Malukas, if the MSR deal doesn't work out. Which, by the way, you missed what I said about Meyer Shank. I call them the McLaren rejects.
I had my headset on the whole time while we were doing the family stuff, so I heard everything. like me fading into my action figures.
Fading into the night. Anyway, regardless, I think those would be your two, and then for that third entry, I think it'd be Larson for Indy. It could definitely be done for sure.
Now here's the thing: if he goes into IndyCar, what do you think that does anything to his NASCAR, or do you think it will work just as well as his NASCAR stuff?
You talking about Larson?
No, Hendrick.
I think it could. I mean, look at what Penske's done. Forever, Penske had his IndyCar shop in Michigan, and then he had his NASCAR team in North Carolina. But then within the last few years, they combined it all, and he runs IMSA out of that shop, he runs IndyCar and NASCAR all out of that shop. Would Hendrick move? Would they have an Indianapolis shop? I wouldn't rule it out. Just so that you're close to all the resources there. You're close to Aero McLaren, who has a shop up there. Whether that gets done or not, I don't know. but I think you would definitely, if there's an IndyCar team closing down or anything like that, like, hey, it's a good opportunity to get some of those guys that are,
And
not on
just
that.
watch, Hendrick will be the first Honda team in NASCAR.
Well, that's also a thing that I've been hearing around.
It's a very
There's
strong rumor for what I'm hearing.
Yeah, very strong rumor about Honda coming in. Could that be with Trackhouse, Spire, Hendrick? I mean, who knows?
Because
I think it
I don't
could
know what
be.
Chevy's doing after this year. I really
Well,
don't.
they're staying. Um, I remember reading something in January where NASCAR basically said you can run the Camaro an additional year. So like not 2024, but because they made 2024 model Camaros, they can run
Mhm.
those in 2025.
Oh,
So you don't really have to make a decision until midway through 25.
Midway through 2025. Now, I've heard rumors that they were testing a Cadillac body somewhere at a racetrack. I've heard
well, here's the
that,
thing.
they would switch to the Malibu.
Don't you have to send your plans into NASCAR at least a year and a half before it
Yeah,
hits
it's
the
like
track?
year to a year and a half. So, really, I
Right
mean,
now, we should be hearing what's
yeah,
happening.
between now and August, I would say probably maybe even around the Brickyard time because Chevy is a big supporter of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Chevy's dominated at the Brickyard on the oval side anyway. I mean, we might hear something about, you know,
Can you
a Chevrolet
imagine?
announcement with NASCAR.
Can you imagine a NASCAR without Chevrolet?
That'd be
Uh,
crazy to
it,
think
yeah, it'd be
think
crazy
about.
to think about, but
Like,
I
I
mean,
mean, Pontiac's coming back. That's a thing.
actually, it's not. That was a joke.
That was fake.
That was fake. That was a fake ad.
That looks so legit
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
in
yeah.
an
April
actual
Fools.
in an actual um
Right.
magazine.
I believe it too. Yeah, it's not real.
Oh, that sucks.
Right.
Because I would
Yeah.
have loved to seen like a Thunderbird
Or whatever,
no, are
whatever
they
they
a
had.
Thunderbird
Right.
or were they a Firebird?
They were Firebird.
Yeah,
Thunderbird
Firebird.
is Ford.
The damn
Yeah.
birds.
Right.
Bird is the word.
Right. Oh man.
Ow, I cracked my back on that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Um, but in all seriousness, I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, Chevy was kind of in and out of NASCAR. They weren't fully committed. And Ford, I mean, they have a history too of being in and out of NASCAR as well. Um, at one point, early mid part of the 60s and into the 70s. So it wouldn't be fully shocking. I don't think GM would pull out altogether out of NASCAR. I think if anything, they would just use their Cadillac brand.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It'd just be weird without
Or
seeing Chevy.
or they would use their fleet vehicle, which is the Malibu. That would be my theory. By 2026, you would
Ew.
see you. And honestly, if you look at the Malibu, the nose that they have on the Chevy right now isn't much different from the Camaro to the Malibu. It's kind of similar.
it kind of reminds me a little bit of the
So
Impala and the Impala SS when they ran that.
Or
yeah,
the
they ran
or
the Impala
the
for the
Chevrolet
COT
SS.
races, and then in 07 they ran the Monte Carlo, which technically wasn't even a car anymore at that point by 07, but they
Mhm.
made some 07 models at the end of the 06 year, so they were able to run it.
The brand
But
new
You know
yeah,
what?
Chevrolet SS.
You know what's
right.
crazy? You know what's crazy to me is how Dodge doesn't want to get back into NASCAR since they've been out of the sport now for 12 years.
I mean, I'm pretty sure
Well,
Fiat has a
so
big thing about that.
here's the deal on that. So there have been some manufacturers that are interested in coming back or getting into NASCAR for the first time, whether that's Nissan or Honda or whoever. But here's the thing: when NASCAR tells them it's a V8 pushrod engine series, they're like, "Nope, see ya, we're done. We don't want to be in it." It's a deal breaker because let's be serious here, guys. The V8 pushrod engine, it's basically non-existent anymore in today's modern day
I was
cars.
gonna say I'm curious on why we haven't seen NASCAR turn into like the I'm gonna get some shit for this, so be prepared.
Hybrid,
The hybrid engine.
yes. So here's what I've heard. Okay, and now I know some people that have worked on the next gen car when it first came out. From what I was told by a couple of former employees at a few race teams. I'm not going to give out names or team names or anything. But basically, when that next gen car was built, it was built in the mind for having a hybrid system in the engine bay eventually. So, at least in the NASCAR Cup Series, at bare minimum, I don't know about Xfinity or Truck because that's, lower. They don't have the money like the Cup guys do, allegedly, right?
Alleged.
At least for the Cup stuff, there could be a point here the next 2-3 years where if NASCAR really needs to get a manufacturer, they would switch everything up to the hybrid programs. Now, what they could do, since guys like GM, and I think this is where they would really play a benefactor, they're already running hybrid in IMSA. If that power plant can fit into the hood of a NASCAR Cup car, boom, there you go. You already have all your notes for, being able to run a solid engine with a hybrid system.
And that's where
Ford doesn't run in I think the GT3s are hybrids, so it would help them a little bit.
Are they though?
I don't know if they are or not. I'm just assuming. I'm
I
sure.
was just
Joe
say,
will
I was
probably
like,
correct us
I'm
in the
trying to
comments.
listen to the engine in my head, and I was like, I don't hear the.
Now I will say, in iRacing, the new Mustang GT3 car sounds like a next gen Cup car.
Well, that's what people said
So-
in real life too. Like if they've gone an IMSA race, when that Ford GT goes around, it sounds like an next gen Cup car.
Yep, sounds like a Ford Cup car. And I can tell the difference in sounds between a Toyota, a Ford, and a Chevrolet. By the way, they all have, like, individually. When they're in a pack, you can't really tell, but like when they're individually going around a racetrack, you can hear the difference. It's a very minute difference, but it's a difference.
I just think though, if NASCAR does do the hybrid thing with the next gen cars in the next few years, you just don't want to drive away the fan base that goes there just to hear the sound of the race cars. Because if you lose that sound,
I don't think you're going to lose the sound at all.
I don't think you'll lose a sound at all. I think it's just, it's not going to be a V8 engine. Those cars will still be pretty loud, but because I've been to an IMSA race, that Cadillac sounds like a Chevrolet Cup car.
I was gonna say, we've heard it. It's when it first starts rolling, you don't hear it, but once it hits a certain speed,
it's there. And it'll kick you in the throat. Like it's there.
I think it's like the first 40 or 60 miles an hour. It's
it's
and
quieter because it's on the hybrid. It's on the battery power. But once they put the power down, I mean, it's just like any other race car. And would it be an adjustment for NASCAR fans? Sure. I think it would drive out all the boomers, but that's beside the point.
Some of them unfortunately need to go.
I'm neither here nor there. I think if you need to be innovative as a series and as motorsports as a society, got to go with the hybrid engines. Yeah. It's time. It's way past due. They're running an engine concept still from the 60s and 70s, y'all.
So since we're basically talking about new manufacturers coming in, Honda, Nissan, is there a third?
Probably Dodge. Dodge keeps coming in and out. But here's the thing. Honda does not have a full-size pickup. They just have the Ridgeline.
Do they have to go into the truck series?
They would enter the truck series. They would enter the Ridgeline. That's what they would do. Now, I don't know if they're going to be required to roll out a full-size pickup. I don't know. That would be something they'd have to run with NASCAR.
Titan would look pretty cool.
A Titan would look pretty cool. And you know what's funny about the Titan? It has a Cummins engine in it.
I was going to say, it has a Dodge
headquartered here in Columbus, Indiana.
They would take the path of doing what Toyota did.
That's what I was thinking on this the other night. I think you were there for that conversation, Mike. I basically said that, if Honda was smart, they would take notes from Toyota. Come in 3 years early, run, the truck series for 2 or 3 seasons, get your bearings underneath you, learn the NASCAR way, and then roll out your car stuff for Xfinity and Cup. I think for Cup, you'd have the Accord. For Xfinity, you'd have the Civic, kind of to go with like what Toyota's done with the Supra in the Xfinity series. So I think it's if Honda would get into NASCAR, I think you have to get in 2 or 3 years early. Don't just come in with a cup effort right off the bat because I don't think it would work. It'd be like Lotus when they ran an IndyCar post merger with CART. So I think you got to take that route.
And I'm just saying,
But
if we ever get Nissan, so many people on our team are going to be happy because there's a Sentra wrecking.
that Nissan Altima or Sentra Energy, yes, absolutely, for
But
sure.
I also drive a Nissan, so I'm a little biased, and I've never had an issue with it. And I'm a safe driver.
If
here's the deal though, and it's like with anything else in life. If you take care of your car, it'll last you for 1,000,000 miles. But if you don't take care of your shit, then that's when you have a problem.
I honestly would like to see Cadillac go in versus everybody else, to be honest.
Fuck it. Let's have Buick come back.
That'd be nice. I drive a Buick, so I'm biased to that.
So, if we have more than 3 manufacturers where you're going to have teams be their number one, I think NASCAR gets better racing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, because let's look at it, the current landscape, right? Chevrolet, your top team is Hendrick. Always has been, always will be. Your second or third team,
Until they jump ship to Honda.
You could argue either Trackhouse or RCR. However, I think if there is a switch to Honda, I think it would be Trackhouse and Hendrick for sure. I just have a feeling. I don't know why, but that's just my theory.
Trackhouse going to Honda?
Yeah, I could see it.
I know we're talking about a bunch of this stuff, but I heard something pretty interesting this morning on Jackaroo was on Sirius XM radio.
Yep,
he was on Sirius XM radio this morning for NASCAR
front stretch.
And front stretch. And he was talking about the fact of the whole Andretti Global Inspire thing, which that was the first time I ever heard that conversation on that airwave.
On airwaves. Yeah.
Yep.
So here's the deal. Maybe Andretti could buy into Trackhouse. I mean, I've heard that Pitbull wasn't this whole NASCAR thing isn't what he expected. So he could get out and then Andretti buy his shares, and then boom, you have Andretti Global with Justin Marks.
That's really, because everything I've heard with Pitbull, he's having the time of his life.
Maybe he's putting on a good act. I don't know.
Okay,
but I think if you have just those 3 men alone, with Pitbull supplying the money and Justin Marks and Michael Andretti putting their heads together for the team stuff, like from the racing aspect, I think you could have a really solid race team there. And I think it would be an avenue that Justin Marks could take to get into IndyCar, because he's been saying he's been wanting to get into IndyCar. So, but let's move on here a little bit. We got some NASCAR news this week. Austin Cindric wins at Gateway after Christopher Bell blows up and Ryan Blaney runs out of fuel coming to the white flag. Honestly, I'm really not surprised that he won, because he was running top 5 all day anyway. He was running top 3 most of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
it was one of those 3 drivers.
Literally. Yeah, it was going to be one of those 3 guys at the end of the day. Now, I think Bell had the superior car, and I think Blaney was a close second. And then you had either Cindric or
Logano, Blaney.
Logano was kind of buried back in the top 10. I was thinking, Brad K.
Brady K. Who ended up finishing second.
Yeah, he did. He did end up finishing second. So, yeah, I think, those were kind of your top 4 guys.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. He finished third. Denny Hamlin finished second.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Hamlin too. I mean, those 5-6 guys that we just mentioned right there, they were basically hogging the top 6 all day.
I think overall, so the race surprised me a little bit, because Gateway has been, I don't want to, how you want to word it, like very iffy the first 3 years on the calendar for the
22 was a great race. I thought 23 was because they had the rain delay and stuff, and so they raced at night. But this year
was 22 okay. Was 22 only good because you had the Ross Chastain Chase Elliott and did he
No,
have
the
that
f-
BS?
And
The
that's
finish
and that's the thing too that you got to look into as well. That's a good point.
I thought the finish of 22 was better, but I mean this one too. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody knew Blaney
the-
was going to run out of gas.
The racing
Blaney
in this one I feel
wasn't
like was
supposed
the
to
best.
run out of gas, but he ran out of gas anyway. So
This race that we just
Miscalculation by the
had, I
crew.
think, was the best racing we had.
I think
with the
so.
track.
I think so. Because if you look at it, I mean, the groove was pretty wide. I mean, they were running the bottom, they were running up toward the top. Like you had multiple lanes to choose from. I thought it was a pretty good race. Just there's something with that next gen car. It could put a crap ton of rubber on the track, but once that rubber's there, then that's it. Like the times stay the same. Like they fall off a little bit, but then they just stay the same after they drop off like a second or a half a second.
There was
Personally, people have been saying more power. I've been saying, yeah, you could do more power, but maybe you do something with the tire to where you make a softer and softer tire.
Well,
I think that's where NASCAR would have to go with that. With
I'm
Goodyear.
hoping that we get that. Like they tested it out with the All-Star race, but those tires were still too close. If they had a bigger gap between what they were,
yeah,
I think it'll work.
Well, my thing is here too. A lot of the guys in the garage, and especially at NASCAR meetings when they meet with the drivers. I mean, the drivers are always going to want horsepower, but NASCAR's probably not going to do that now. So the next best thing that NASCAR drivers have been wanting is change the tires. I mean, I even heard that they want the next gen tires overall to go smaller instead of being wider and bigger.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I think the sidewall where it's at and everything like that is fine. It's just that there's too much contact patch with the tire hitting the road. Like they need to cut that in half. I think if they were to cut that in half,
I don't know about
I
cutting it
think
in
you'd
half.
have-
Maybe a quarter. You chop off.
like taking an easy 2 or 3 inches off it, because I think right now what they got is like 10 or 12 inches hitting the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take off 2 or 3, I think that'd make all the difference in the world. Because
maybe even on just the front tires.
I say overall,
Okay.
like, could you imagine like a narrower tire on like these mile and a halves that we're going to? And they already produce great racing, but I think the racing would be even better. And I think it would really, especially on the short tracks and road courses, it would help them out because they have to think about how much tire they want to use, right?
Yeah.
They'd have to think about, if I hit the gas hard right here, I could blow the damn tires off the car. And that's the one consequence that these guys don't have right now is blowing the damn tires off the car.
Well, and the thing is,
Yeah,
I was going to say, the thing is too, then you have the people that argue that Xfinity is the best racing out there. Well, what do you think? That car was, 2010 as an old CLT car.
Yeah, pretty much. They literally, what they did with the COT that we have in the Xfinity series today, they started that in 2010 when it was the nationwide series. But yeah, I mean, what they did was they just took the blueprint from the Cup car and just made a slightly smaller version of it with the nationwide COT.
Yeah.
But it's produced great racing.
And I like the next gen car. I really do. It's
got a lot of potential, but
I'm appalled why it's taking so long to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are at too. This car was definitely rushed.
Yes.
I think the COVID year killed them.
Yep.
Because they were about to do a lot of testing in 2020, and I think they just said, you know what, fuck it, we need to get this car out on the racetrack. Let's just use 2022 as a testing year. And it's like, we don't really want to, but let's go ahead and do it.
And this year we're getting a lot of good races.
Yeah.
And I mean good races. I don't mean just good finishes because people get clouded with a really good finish that the race was bullshit for the
first 400 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think we are starting to get a lot better racing at the mile and a half and stuff. But here's the deal, y'all. And I said this even before this next gen car came out. They're like, oh yeah, the next gen's going to even the playing field, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's going to be closer, whatever.
Everything stayed the same.
Bingo. That's what I'm getting at.
The teams with money have money. The teams with no money still
don't
have
no
money.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Thank
Gary,
you,
get out of my head. Or I should get out of your head.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, I mean, 2022 was a year where we saw multiple winners and everybody was like, oh my God, parity. This is great. This is great. Yeah, we're going to see this every year. And then you get to this year and last year, and it's the same old story that it was with the old car too. So it's like
Yeah.
you had 1 year parity, and then the rest of it's eh.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing Trackhouse about where they should have been, even with Ganassi at the fold when he was owning that team. Like they get about 2 or 3 wins per year, and that's about it. They run about top 10 rest of the time. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's just, you're not contending up there with like Hendrick or Gibbs, where their guys, at least 2 out of their 3 guys or 4 guys or whatever, half that team's winning 20 races a year.
Yeah, but the minute you get into the playoffs, unless you're like a bottom team that looked into a win, you could
Get
Cinderella
hot at the right
story
time.
your way up.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Chastain did in 22. I mean, haul the wall. I mean, that's what he did. Hail Melon, whatever you want to call it, right?
I do think though, if they fix this car on the short tracks, road courses, and then super speedways, I think overall this car would be fantastic if you fix all those 3 areas.
Yeah, here's how I want them to. Here's what I want them to do. I want them to fix the short tracks and the road courses first, because those are the biggest glaring. Those are the biggest glaring problems I think we have right now, right? They need to fix those too. The speedway races, there's a simple fix. You ready for it? Ready for this? Ready?
Yes.
Don't throw the damn caution for the stage. Keep on trucking, because you're gonna wreck anyway, because you're at Daytona and Talladega and Atlanta.
I think we should just call the stages and just keep going at all the tracks.
I mean, I'm right there with you too. I like what Kyle Busch said best. Like, if you want to throw a caution for stages, okay, just randomly throw the caution. Like, change it up every race.
Like the old debris cautions?
Yeah, like the old mystery debris cautions. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I feel like they have to stage it the way they do, so people are like, oh, you only did that because that person was leading.
Beer time. I mean, that's why they introduced stage racing. Come on, y'all. The fans need to get more drunker. Oh, there goes AJ again. Is he grabbing a beer?
He might be grabbing a beer. But one,
he did. It's a Bud Light.
Oh, come on now.
I buy whatever's on sale.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I guess that's fair.
Fair enough.
One last thing to touch on Gateway before we move on. I do want to say, though, over the last month or so, it seems like Penske has been nailing the head and Ford has gotten a lot better, especially with RFK and Penske as a whole.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of the year, Ford was struggling out the gates.
Well, and that's the thing. The best Ford teams, I mean, you don't have, how do I want to put this?
I think it's the tracks they've gone to, Mike. And
I think that's part of it too. I think that has a small minor
Darlington,
thing to do with it,
North Wilkesboro,
Charlotte, they're always pretty good at.
Yeah, and then
Gateway
Worldwide.
they've been good at. But here's the thing, right? Ford really doesn't have a powerhouse team that what Chevy's got. Sure, Stuart Haas is running 4 cars, but they haven't been worth a damn since 2020.
Ford probably cut them off a while ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think they're just basically doing what Michael Waltrip did in 06. Remember when he ran that Dodge?
Yep.
And it had no Charger decals or anything on it. It was just the headlights and the taillights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where they're at. Okay, that's where they are. They run the manufacturer but don't have any of the support. But no, what I was getting ready to say was, I mean, there isn't a 4-car team that's a Ford out there right now. They're either 2 or 3 cars mostly. Front row is expanding next year. We know that they're expanding from 2 to 3.
Good for them though.
Penske at 3. Roush Fenway's at 2.
No, RFK's been rumored to try to get a 3rd or 4th car.
Yeah, they're rumored to expand from 2 to 3. Rick Ware's at 2. Penske's at 3. They'll run a 4th car. I think. I think the only time that we'll see Penske run a 4th car in Cup is if Joseph Newgarden wants to run the double.
I could see that.
Or when Scott McLaughlin wants to run the double. That'd be the only time that I would see that happen, in my opinion.
Did any of those teams at one point have a 4-car team?
Roush used to have 5.
Yeah, Roush had 5.
Like in the mid 2000s, they have Mark Martin, Greg Biffle, Kenseth, Kurt Busch, and Carl.
Oh, you forget too. They had David Reagan in that one. After Kurt Busch left, they had David Reagan in one of those.
They had David Reagan after Martin retired. So then McMurray was the Kurt Busch replacement.
Yeah. I was trying to think. I think 06, David Reagan ran a few races on like an 06 car. It was him and
he
Todd
ran
Claver.
the 06 car, and that was when Roush entered a 6th entry.
Oh my goodness, 6th. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that was at a time too where there wasn't a rule
No,
on how many cars a team could enter.
Did they get rid of
Uh,
that rule, or did
they
the
did.
charters
They
basic?
did.
Because I
So
remember
they got
when
rid of that rule before the charter. So it was '08. They announced that you have to be a 4-car team by the time you roll into 2010. So, which was convenient because McMurray's contract expired at the end of '09. A couple of the sponsors that were on Roush were expiring at the end of '09. And so after that happened, I think the DeWalt deal was gone after '09 or
Mhm.
'08, something like that, somewhere in that area. So they just kind of moved sponsors around to be on all 4 cars.
here's my question
And
then:
they
How
lost
did
McMurray.
how did Chase Elliott run those couple races in the 25
So
under
there
Hendrick
was
Motorsports?
that rule was you couldn't run 5 cars full time. However, what you could do, and this is what they did, if you wanted to run a 5th car, you can up to 5 races for like a rookie or just R&D purposes. So
Okay.
like even before Chase came along and ran that 25 car in 2014, from like '08 to 20, it was '08 and '09. Brad Keselowski ran like a couple races for Phoenix in the '09, but he also ran like 2 or 3 or 4 races um, in the 25 in the GoDaddy car.
and
For Hendrick.
that was about the time too that everybody thought Brad was going to take over from Mark Martin, but surprisingly, Mark Martin came back
Wanted
and
to stay
that.
another year. Right.
Yep.
Right. Because it was going to be going into 2010 that, or maybe even 2011, that Mark was going to get out of that car and Brad was going to get in it in the 5 car. Could you imagine a world where Brad Keselowski drove for Hendrick Motorsports instead of Penske?
Bet you there's an extra championship there.
I think an extra 2 championships.
Yeah, I could agree.
Like I think 20. So he won the championship in 2012, right?
Yes.
Yep, the last year with Dodge.
I think he could have won in 15 and 16, to be honest, because he was good both them years. Where he won like 4 or 5 races with Penske, but they just could not get it done after Martinsville.
Oh, even 14, he was
14,
in the
yeah.
lead 8.
Yeah, he was in a round of 8. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you could have easily figured it out there.
We're talking so much NASCAR. Joe's gonna be pissed.
Joe's gonna be upset. But hey, I touched the.
We had a lot of fun with IndyCar.
Yeah, I mean but I knew a lot of the IndyCar stuff was just gonna be quick points, and this is why Joe and I work great together, because he's all up in the NASCAR stuff. Or IndyCar stuff. I'm all up in the NASCAR stuff, and he's got stuff that he could just pull out right off the fly because he just knows. Or I have to kind of research it and be like, oh, hey, this could work.
Hey, if you got anything
Maybe not.
Disney, Marvel, or DC, I'm your guy.
Yeah, you're the guy. So Larson finally got his waiver. About time.
Well, no.
About time.
They asked for the waiver the Thursday after the 600.
Oh, so they waited a week. Okay, and that's why they didn't come out. Okay, that makes sense. Because I thought that was going to be a thing right away. Where like that Tuesday they were like, "Hey, waiver, please."
But
thanks.
But they literally, I don't know. I don't know why they waited. Number one, number two. There were a lot of drivers, and there was a portion of that time.
I was going to say 3/4 of the field were saying, "Give them the damn waiver already."
But the ones that were saying don't were a lot louder.
Oh, for sure. Honestly, I think NASCAR needs to work on the waiver.
Yeah.
If you bring that point up, and that's exactly what Kevin Harvick said on the Fox Pure Show Gateway. He says, "I don't like the waiver rule. They should get rid of it." And
Well, here's the deal, right? You declare your points at the beginning of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you declare whether you're going to run Cup, Xfinity, or Truck full time. That's you declare that at the beginning of the year. I get it. He went to run Indy, but he's not running IndyCar full time. He's just running NASCAR full time. To me, here's my opinion. You declare your entry, right? Now, Harvick said on his podcast you could do a drop week, which I think would be interesting if they did that. But in all reality, if you want to race and you're top 30 in points, screw it. And you miss 1 or 2 races because of unforeseen circumstances. Like, I don't think Chris Buescher or Brad Keselowski or William Byron or Denny Hamlin or whoever, right? Like, if they're going to miss the birth of their child because of the damn NASCAR rules, that's a little sketch. It's a little ridiculous. Like, and they might not be able to get a waiver because of the birth of a child. Or, I mean, hell, we granted Chase Elliott not one but 2 waivers last year.
One of them wasn't even in a NASCAR race. The other one he got suspended for. If you're gonna give somebody a waiver for a suspension,
then you had to give Kyle Larson a waiver. Just saying.
And I'm a Chase Elliott fan. You both know that.
Yes. Well, they brought up an interesting fact on Sirius XM radio. Elton Sawyer was on there, and Elton Sawyer was talking about, this is a long thought out process about this waiver rule he was like, we also had some guys in the room that were opposed, I should say, to giving him a waiver, and a majority of the room wanted to give him a waiver, so that's why it took a long time.
I don't think they understand what Larson did for motorsports and how much NASCAR promoted the fuck out of it. It would have been very hypocritical for NASCAR to not give him that waiver.
I mean, here's a very, very good analogy. They used Ricky Stenhouse and Kyle Busch,
and gave him a $75,000 fine
as promotion, and still penalized him.
Yeah.
NASCAR, fuck you, Kyle Larson. But hey, thank you.
You'll see that promotion for the North Wilkesboro commercial next year.
Here's the thing. Here's where I'm at with this, and I've said this for a while. I thought it was ridiculous they could fined him $75,000 because look what they did to Custer. Look what they did to Austin Hill. Jeez. And Kyle Weatherman. $25,000 for using their car as a weapon. But oh my God, if you punch a guy, it's $75K. Like, what the hell? Isn't that ass backwards? Or am I just
not even that? If you're gonna use it for promotion,
you shouldn't find him.
Find the guy. Period.
You're making money off of what they just did, but you're gonna be like, no, don't do that.
I have a feel, and I just thought of this too. This thought just came up into my head. The Austin Hill and Kyle Weatherman thing, those were during point races. Do you think, and we could open this for discussion, do you think that they fined Ricky Stenhouse an extra $50,000 because it was a non-points race?
If anything, that's another reason why not to fine them. If anything, you should be fining Kyle because he just cleaned out a driver on lap 1 for something Ricky never even touched him.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm surprised Kyle hasn't gotten punched more in the last 20 years since he's been in NASCAR. You want to know why? You know how he is. He's got that sarcastic smirk to him and that sarcastic tone all the damn time after a bad race. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten punched in the face more. Just saying.
He's got a very
just saying. Face. Just saying. And I said that to a Kyle Busch fan too. They didn't like that very much. But it's true. He's got a very punchable face, and you're an asshole. And if you act like an asshole, you might get punched more. I'm just saying.
Well, and I think that brings up the argument why some people like Kurt Busch better than Kyle, because I mean Kurt really turned the corner after his debacle.
Yeah, okay, I think after Kyle for the most part has too. He still has his moments, but Kyle is vastly different than what he was.
I was gonna say if suspending him for the weekend, I think was the best thing NASCAR did for him back in 2011, because that really got his attention. I honestly
think it was Brexton.
Yeah, I think that has a little bit of something to do with it too, because he was born in 2012 or 13.
Oh, I feel so old now.
I think so.
Or no, Brexton's only like 6 or 7. He's not 10 yet, is he?
No, I think it was 15. Because I think Samantha was.
Oh, that's right. Because Kyle broke his leg, and then they had Brexton like a couple months later. Yeah, so he's like 8 or 9 now, which is crazy to think about.
Watching all these drivers' kids that you're like, weren't you just like born yesterday? And they're like seeing Logano's kid. Seeing Logano's kid. Yeah, him. Oh my God, Harvick's kid.
Like, I see Jamie McMurray's kid.
I'm like looking at them. I was like, I remember when you were a baby and I was watching TV.
I remember when you were being thrown in victory lane when you won the championship with your dad. You know what I mean?
It's all I've ever known.
Yeah, pretty much. So finally granted the waiver. Thank God. Finally. Took him a while, but hey, kudos to you, NASCAR. Let's talk about this. Sonoma this week. We're going to talk about a couple things. Boris Said's in the 17 car for Xfinity for
Said
Hendrick.
Hood?
Wine and cheese. Wine and cheese.
And he's already wrecked.
Yes, he has.
But it looked like to me either he had a stuck throttle or he had a brake problem or something with the suspension
Well,
yesterday.
if it's a Hendrick car in the Xfinity series, it's a brake problem.
Probably. It was something. I don't know what it was, but I mean, he just went through turn one and didn't stop. Something broke on the car, but I think they have a backup for him, so he should make the race today.
I love Boris Said.
Who doesn't? SVG was fastest in Xfinity practice. No surprise there. I'm really kind of surprised that Trackhouse didn't try to enter the 91 this week at Sonoma.
I think it has to do with overusing SVG.
Well, and I think that, but also we got to think about too. He only gets like 5 races or 7 races.
Yeah, and my thinking is too they're saving one of those starts
up that way. It goes up too, not just down.
Well, no, for him to keep his rookie of the year eligibility for the following year, because I think he's going cup racing next year, he can only run like 5 or 7 races.
Okay, that's what you meant. Okay.
And my thinking is too they wanted to save SVG for Chicago where he won last year instead of running them at Sonoma.
Well, and they are running the Chicago street race with him, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure he is.
So I think that's probably part of it. And then
I'd rather
I know they wanted to use the other races to give him some oval experience. That's why he ran Talladega. That's why he ran Charlotte. I think he's running the Roval too.
I will still.
Didn't he run Gateway?
No.
Thought he did.
No, Fox made the mistake of putting him in the graphic at the end of the race. The same thing
they
with
put
Allgaier.
in the same. They put Allgaier in the Gateway graphic too. That was funny.
But my thing, going back to how we were talking about SVG and he ran Talladega. If he got that third lane to work and Ty Gibbs didn't screw that third lane, SVG could have easily won that race.
Either won or had a top 5. That's for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Wesley Donaldson move from Wednesday's race.
Right. Also, let's talk about the Jersey wall in turn 11.
Dude, that looks weird. Do you like
how I called the Jersey wall there?
Well, yeah, I got it. I see a lot of those being up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It is very... And Gary disappeared. And Gary's back.
Yeah, gotta love the camera. Sorry, guys.
It's really weird to look at. It's gonna have to, like, physically, it's gonna be something... Like, they're not cutting it anymore.
So used to seeing the tire barrier for forever there. Yeah.
What was the
don't
reason
like
behind it?
So I think they just repaved it. So maybe I'm thinking they were maybe thinking before this repave the last few years of like enforcing track limits a little better through turn 11. Because if you look at the last decade or so there, a lot of the guys were knocking over the tire barriers on purpose. A lot of the guys were cutting that corner way short. But now if there's to the point where
there's a wreck
where they had all 4 tires below that rumble strip. So maybe my thinking is they wanted them to stay above the curb. And so the only way they thought they could do it was putting a wall there.
Yeah, but a concrete wall, that to me doesn't sit right with me.
I mean, it's movable. It's a Jersey barrier. So even if they were to hit it, that wall will flex.
Well, how much do you want to bet this weekend?
It's going to be put to the test.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
It's going to get put to the test.
Especially
probably
in the hairpin.
I was going to say, if Jeff Gordon is in the race, he'd probably be the first one to hit it. So as much as I love Jeff Gordon, he always found a way to hit the wall.
Yep. Not a bad
Same with Elliott Sadler. He's not in the race either.
Pocono.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and Jeff were always really good for finding the walls at inaptitude times and testing the shit out of the car for the safety features.
That's a lot of it.
I mean, you could ask Dale Earnhardt about it too, but.
Oh, shit.
Oh, crap. I said that on stream, didn't I? Well, we're going to edit that out. Just kidding.
Who edits?
Right. Not you
we'll
or
do
Joe.
It live. We'll do it live.
I was thinking about doing it live.
We should have. That would have been more fun. But here we are. Blaney tops the cup practice. I mean, we already know that. Per TobyChristie.com, I did see this earlier in the week. Last year for the inaugural race at Chicago, Cup drivers weren't allowed to run in the Xfinity race. Now they are this year.
I like that
So-
move. I like
So
that move.
it'll be interesting to see how many extra cars we'll see out there for the Xfinity race because Cup guys want to get in. So
I like it because it will also help with, bringing more viewers into the Xfinity side, or even possibly helping the attendance too.
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
For NASCAR not to do it next year and just pass it over to IndyCar.
So kind of wrapping up. I want to get y'all's race picks for this week. We'll talk about IndyCar and NASCAR, so we'll circle back. But I just realized something. I'm an idiot. We all know this, but it hit me yesterday. IndyCar is in cheese country,
Yeah.
and NASCAR is in wine country this week on the same weekend.
Yeah, good combo.
How about it? Wine and cheese and wine.
And yet Road America doesn't have a Cup Series date. Don't know why.
I'm still angry about that.
I think if they want to do something up in that part of the country, just go to Chicagoland Speedway.
That's
Problem
another
solved.
thing. I will still advocate for that track too.
I'll die on that hill. That's okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the Chicago Street Race being a thing after next year. I don't think
Probably not. I think it was only a 2 or 3 year deal, anyways.
3 years.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. Winter picks. Road America. Who y'all got?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Polo or Newgarden again.
Mhm.
But I kind of want to see O'Ward.
Okay. Yep. Pato would get his technically second win of the year. The pain in me was just real there. Because Newgarden technically won St. Pete. That's what everybody remembers. But push to Penske. Go ahead, Mike. Who's your pick? Road America. Let's hear it.
I'm gonna actually go with Scott Dixon. I think Scott Dixon's gonna win 2 in a row.
2 in a row.
Well, and post Indy 500, this is Scott's territory. Whether it's road course, street and road, whether it's road and street courses or short tracks or whatever, whatever you throw at him, he's definitely a possible winner. I'm gonna pick him too, just because I do like Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon wins are always nice. But a car that I'm looking out for the most, I would say, is probably Felix Rosenqvist as another guy for me. He's just been fast this year. He hasn't been able to put a whole race together, but once that MSR team, once they figure that out and put a full race together, I think he could win one before the year's out. I really do. Cup race. Well, hell, screw it. Xfinity race too. Who y'all got for Xfinity today?
Can we all say this name in the exact same time?
I think we're all thinking about it.
SVG.
SVG. Yep.
Is he gonna do a drift after he wins again?
I
today?
hope so.
That'd be funny. I think he needs to.
Can anybody contend with him on a road course?
Well, Parker Kligerman was second fastest yesterday in practice.
What was the time difference if you have it?
I think it was like a tenth of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Parker's always been really to me, and people are probably going to disagree with this, but I feel like Mid Ohio and Sonoma are kind of the same track.
3/10.
Was it 3/10?
Ty Gibbs was third with 3/10, half a second back, Justin Allgaier, and then after that it just falls off a freaking cliff.
Yeah. Sonoma's a tricky track, so that doesn't surprise me.
I'm happy they got rid of the freaking carousel, whatever you want to call it. The
old format.
Yeah, I mean, I think the old format is pretty decent, but
I've
think
always
for,
liked the
for
short.
the I've always liked the shoe as well for the stock cars. It makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
What I was getting ready to say though was Mid Ohio and Sonoma are kind of the same to me because of the elevation changes. So and we saw Parker Kligerman, it was either last year or 2 years ago, win at Mid Ohio in the 75 truck. So I think this kind of racetrack, even though this track is paved, fits a guy like Parker Kligerman to possibly win or get top 3 tomorrow today. So
oh yeah, no kidding.
At the time of the recording, because it's June 8th.
The minute you send me out that description, I will post it.
Cool, perfect. So yeah, that's my pick. Those are my picks for Xfinity too. Either SVG or Parker. I think that's
I
going
as
to be the
much
class
as
of the field.
I am not a Ty Gibbs fan, he was fastest. I think they said, or not fastest, but second fastest over the 10 lap average, and
Yeah.
he wasn't far off of SVG at all.
No.
I will argue too that Allmendinger is a guy we need to keep an eye out for today.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Seventh fast, a second behind SVG with fastest lap time, and sixth, over a 10 lap average.
Okay. Well, I mean, Colleague has kind of been up hit or miss with their racing the last couple of years, anyways. Cup race tomorrow. Ryan Blaney was fastest in practice yesterday. I think they qualify right now, actually.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. There you go. Who y'all got for the cup race on Sunday? Sunday.
Chase Elliott for me. I want him to win
Okay.
because I just don't. As he won Texas, but I didn't really feel like he won Texas.
Yeah.
And we
sure.
know he's good at road courses, and
Yeah, he's good. I wouldn't call him the goat of road courses, but he's good.
not anymore.
Yeah, he's not the king of the road, but I mean, he's
He,
good.
he was for those 3 or 4 years where he,
Yeah,
what
for a
was
couple
it,
of years, yeah.
like 6 wins in a row on a road course.
Something like that. He had his little run there, kind of like what Jeff Gordon had back in the day.
Tony Stewart as well.
Yeah, Tony as well. Yeah, he was dominant at the Glen. Chase Elliott for AJ. Who do you got, Mike?
I'm gonna go actually Martin Truex Jr. I think Truex is gonna win 2 years in a row at Sonoma.
Okay, all right.
I like that pick. That's actually a really good pick.
That's a solid pick right there. Do I pick with my heart or my head?
Well, give us 2.
All right. Well, personally, I would love to see a Stuart Haas car in victory lane at Sonoma again.
Ooh.
I don't think it's going to happen though.
But Noah was 7th. 7th.
I was going to say probably it would be either Gregson or Briscoe, but I don't think either one of them are going to be able to do it. So I'm going to pick.
Briscoe was 31st.
I'm going to pick the man, the myth, the legend. You all know what car he drives.
Trying to figure out who's the
Kyle Larson. That's what I'm picking tomorrow.
He was 14th fastest in.
I was waiting for you to tell me that he's like bottom of the chart.
14th. And this field is significantly tighter. 14th is just a half a second off. You picked Mike. You picked Martin Truex. He's 10th, and Chase is 5th. Okay. All running over 20 laps in that practice.
Okay.
Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, Will Brown, Alex
Bowman.
Will Brown is going to be a guy to watch because he's coming from the V8 supercars.
Oh,
so
that's
is
right.
So is the guy in the 60. I can't think of his name.
Cam Waters.
Yeah.
He was 35th overall, a second.
Could you imagine? That is a missed opportunity though for NASCAR. Like, could you imagine like a Trackhouse or Colleague would have just entered a third car, unchartered, and just put SVG in that car? So that all 3 of those Aussies and New Zealanders could have been battling it out for a good run. Missed opportunity.
Yeah,
missed opportunity. Okay, so we're getting ready to move into the summer months. So my question of the week, I saved it for last today.
I was going to say before you get to that, do we want to touch on F1 in Canada?
F1 in Canada.
We're not
boring
Scott.
race. It's going to be.
I know we're not Scott.
It's Max Verstappen. It's Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay,
moving
on. They could have a NASCAR race there.
Yes, they should.
I love that track though, and I hate that it's always a boring F1 race.
Unless if it rains,
which very good possibility.
Yeah. Yep. Seems like it always rains up in Montreal when there's a race weekend there.
Yep.
So, yeah, Formula One. I leave it to Scott because I'm still trying to learn Formula. So I feel like my comments don't weigh very much.
I play the game.
Right. Okay, question of the week. What are you looking forward to the most this summer in motorsports? It's a question of the week.
Is this like as a whole or a specific series?
Fuck it. Yeah, all of it.
AJ?
Oh, okay. So we're just gonna put me on the spot first. Boom. Got it. Why not? Cool. So I have a couple ones.
Okay. All right.
Visiting my local short tracks.
Okay.
Because everybody should go support their local short tracks.
Agreed.
I've said that an ungodly amount of times on this channel. Two, the NBC broadcast,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna try to say this without getting canceled. Fuck Fox.
Yeah, the only thing that's cool about Fox is Kevin Harvick and Mike Joy. Don't at me.
That's about it.
And Jamie Little, because she's a great pit reporter.
Yep.
Also true. But other than that, I think when it comes to NASCAR, because that's really what I am more versed in, NBC has the better schedule. And once we really start heating up in those summer months, you start seeing these drivers. I need to win. I really need to win. And desperation starts kicking in, and you could see it on the racetrack with some of these strategy calls. And we've seen it work a couple times. And I think with how we go through the summer, the tracks are hot and slick. People don't know what the heck they're doing on the racetrack, especially the truck series, and strategy wise. So I'm very excited to see what we're going to have leading up to the playoffs.
You know what? I had originally picked Larson for tomorrow. Scratch that. I'm picking Buescher for that reason you just mentioned. Because he has come close, 2 or 3 times finishing second this year?
Mm-hmm.
But
And
how does he
all
normally
within,
run
like,
a
a second?
road course?
He runs pretty good. He finished, I want to say he finished like 3rd last year at Sonoma.
Okay.
Him and McDowell are always very underrated.
Yeah, him and McDowell are always very
McDowell
underrated.
was
They're
another
kind of lurking there in the
top 10
top 5.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to give the nod to Buescher this week. That's going to be my pick. I'd say for me, as far as, the question of the week, definitely visiting my local short track, for sure. That needs to be done.
Well, yeah, your short track's the big short track.
Oh, we got a lot of short tracks that are really
I was
big
thinking
around
about
here.
ORP.
Yeah, well,
IRP.
we got
IRP?
yeah, IRP.
I thought it was
yeah,
ORP.
yeah. It used to be.
Oh, okay. So I'm not
Used
just
to be.
crazy.
No. You're crazy, but not about that.
Crazy? I was crazy once.
Oh, don't start with that. They put me in a room. Okay, anyways.
A rubber room with rats. Rubber rats.
Room with rats. Yeah, that's a good time. Anyways, no, I would say going to the short tracks where that's like I want to go see the Winchester 400 this year. That's like one of my goals, to go out there and go watch that race. If you guys don't know much about Winchester, it is the fastest half mile in the world. Bristol who? 37 degrees of banking in the corners. The steepest asphalt racetrack in the country. 37 degrees. Back in the day when it was dirt, it was 45 degrees. I just blew AJ up. Yeah. It's very steep. A lot of fast speeds there. Mark Martin forever actually held the track record at Winchester in the ASA days. But that's what I'm looking forward to this summer is just going out to the local short track.
I would say for me personally, what I'm looking forward to most this summer is Iowa next week, seeing how the Cup cars will fare at the short track at Iowa, even though it's like a half-assed paved track nowadays.
Yeah, it's very patchy. Did we all see that photo?
Yeah,
Yes.
they were wanting to take out the bumps. You might as well just repave the whole damn thing.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the Chicago Street Race again for the 2nd year in a row. And I'm also
didn't like it.
Yeah, even though I didn't like it, but I mean, hey, whatever. And then I'm also looking forward to going back to the Oval in July, the Indianapolis Brickyard 400 back on the Oval. I'm looking forward to being there in person for my first ever Brickyard 400. So, and then on the IndyCar side, I'm just looking forward to see what's going to happen with this points battle. Because, I mean, the top 3 in points are tight together.
Yes, they are. Absolutely. Indy makes a big difference with that. Alrighty. Well, and Road America. We didn't get to those picks. What do y'all got for Road America? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, we did.
We did? Okay, cool. Didn't mark it off my list. Sorry about
that.
that.
You and I are on the same page with Dixon.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, anything else you guys want to talk about or add?
I found out why the Whalen Modified Tour doesn't go to Stafford anymore.
Why?
Because NASCAR wanted a bigger cut of the flow racing money, and Stafford was like, we don't need you.
Oh. Well,
so they told NASCAR to go shove it, and they're actually doing better.
Good for them.
I mean,
They sell out almost every Friday or Saturday.
yeah, when the SRX was there, I did enjoy watching that track on TV. I think that's like the only short track, like non-NASCAR short track in the country that has safety barriers.
And you know who owns it? Jackaroo.
Jackaroo.
He does. He does. Yeah.
That's why whenever
Interesting
I see,
how him and Mike Joy grew up in the same part of the country, but took two completely different career paths. Jack Root did mostly IndyCar, and Mike Joy did stock car racing, NASCAR. It's very interesting.
So, you know, the SRX series, everybody spoiler, doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Their new street stocks that they run in Stafford literally look like the SRX cars. Like, they're different, but they're very looking close. They got the
Body,
wing and
similar.
everything on them and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, I think too, talking about this thing, it's going to be very interesting to see what IROC is going to do over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, technically they're having an IROC race, and Mark Martin's going to be there at New Jersey or
Lime Rock.
Lime Rock. There we go. Almost said New Jersey Motorsports.
I was
Park,
like,
which
hey,
that
that's
wasn't
Connecticut
correct.
too.
Yeah, Lime Rock. So
That's
that'll be
about
interesting.
35
I think
minutes away
Rob
from my
said he was
house.
going to go out there to Lime Rock. I know Robbie Noonan said, another one of my buddies, he's going out to Lime Rock for the IROC stuff. So could be interesting. Hopefully they can Ray Evernham can build that to where it's on TV here in the next year or two. Can run 4 or 5 races together somewhere, whether that's short track or intermediate or speedways, dirt tracks, who knows.
I'm just
Would
hoping
they
it has staying power.
Yeah, I think it will, because I mean the SRX was trying to be IROC.
Yeah.
But
where
Tony wanted to go do something else, and so
Right.
did Ray Evernham, and they're like, okay,
Yeah,
we're just not going to do
yeah.
this anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, so it'll be interesting. Really looking forward to the summer months. Always a good time. Gets me out of the house a little bit. Go do some stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that is pretty much all that we have here today. Thank you for listening to the Off and Turn One podcast, episode number 14. Rip Parnelli Jones. And you guys have a great day. Stay safe. Stay classy. Scott, keep being stupid in the chat. And Joe eats corn the long way. We're done. See y'all later.
Good night, Canada.
Good night, San Diego.